Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, good day to you, depending where you are in the world. It is our nighttime devotion. We're reading from the devotional Conflict and Courage. The title today, Nothing Too Precious. The scripture reading comes from Hebrews 11, verses 17 to 19. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac. And he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, accounting that God was able to raise him up even from the dead. God had called Abraham to be the father of the faithful, and his life was to stand as an example of faith to succeeding generations. But his faith had not been perfect. He had shown distrust of God in concealing the fact that Sarah was his wife, and again in his marriage with Hagar. That he might reach the highest standard, God subjected him to another test, the closest which man has ever called to endure. The Lord spoke unto him, saying, Take now thy son, thine only son Isaac, whom thou lovest, and offer him for a burnt offering. Now the heart of the old man stood still with horror. The loss of such a son by disease would be most heartrending to the fond father. It would have bowed his whitened head with sorrow. But now he is commanded to shed the precious blood of that son with his own hand. It seemed to him a fearful impossibility. Yet God had spoken, his word must be obeyed. Abraham was stricken in years, but this did not excuse him from duty. He grasped the staff of faith and in dumb agony took by the child his hand, beautiful in the rosy health of youth, and went out to obey the word of God. Abraham didn't stop to question how God's promise could be fulfilled if Isaac was slain. He didn't stay to reason with his aching heart, but carried out the divine command to the very letter, till just as the knife was about to be plunged into the quivering flesh of the child, the word came, Lay not thine hand upon the lad, for now I know that thou fearest God, seeing thou hast not withheld thine son, thine only son, from me. This act of faith in Abraham is recorded for our benefit. It teaches the great lesson of confidence in the requirements of God, however close and cutting they may be. And it teaches children perfect submission to their parents and to God. By Abraham's obedience, we're taught that nothing is too precious for us to give to God. Titled Nothing Too Precious. Abraham was considered righteous because of his faith. And it was because of this one act he did. Yes, he was considered fairly righteous. He had lied, he had done various things. But in all, he was generally a good man. But God put him to the ultimate test by taking telling him to take his son, his only son. Well, it wasn't his only son. There was Ishmael before it. But Isaac was the child of promise. God had promised Abraham a child with Sarah who will become nations, as many as the grains of sand. And this is Abraham doted over Isaac because he was the child of promise. And of course, now God had seen how he worshipped the child. He idolized the child. He doted over the child. Now, by this time, I do believe Isaac would have been a teenager. I might be wrong, might be older. And God said to Abraham, "Take now thine son, thine only son, and offer him as a sacrifice." Now, I have mentioned this before. Abraham didn't, yes, he was heart-stricken, probably added more grey to his greyness, but he did as he was ordered or as he was instructed to do by God. He went through all the motions of preparation to sacrifice his son, his only beloved son. And just when he was about to bring the knife down on him, imagine how much strength that must have taken. God stopped him and said, "Lay not your hand upon that child." What are you willing to sacrifice to please God?